Welcome to Heartistry. I am thrilled to have a very special guest today. This is a very long-time dear friend of mine, and this conversation is so overdue, to say the least. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest, Farhana Huq. Farhana is a visionary social entrepreneur, an executive coach, and a thought partner who transforms ideas into meaningful social impact. Farhana's expertise spans traditional arts preservation, immigrant women's economic empowerment, and surf and ocean culture creation through her platform, Brown Girl Surf. Farhana is a graduate of Tufts University and is a certified professional coach. She has also had extensive training in Hindustani classical dance and music. Hint, hint, that's how we first met. Also, Ori Tahiti, which is Tahitian dance, and a karate style that we will ask her to properly pronounce so I do not mess that up. Farhana resides in what we refer to as Oakland or as Huchiun land in California, where she balances her professional life with her surfing, her art creation, writing, travel, intellectual exploration, and a deep appreciation for community and nature. Again, I'm so excited to have this conversation and for you to listen to it. Please join me in welcoming Farhana Huq to Heartistry. And without further ado, join me in welcoming my dear friend and somebody you are just going to be so elated and inspired to hear from, Farhana Huq.
Hello, it is so great to be here after so many months of trying to get this scheduled.
Yes, no kidding, no kidding.
I'm just looking forward to just hanging out and conversing with you and sharing.
Well, same here. And again, I alluded to this a little bit in your introduction when I mentioned again your relationship with Hindustani classical dance and music. And of course, you and I met. God, what year was that? When did you move to the West Coast?
It is probably about 25 years ago
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we met, of course, because we were both training, studying practitioners of Kathak, which I still do to this day, and you might in some way as well. Um, but that's how we met and became both not just dance sisters, but deeply connected friends. And I think we can certainly touch on this also, but I think you and I also had a shared experience of, yes, being South Asian alongside many of the women we danced with, but not many of them shared the profile that you and I did. You, one parent being Bangladeshi, one Pakistani, mine both being Pakistani, and us identifying as Muslim and being in an environment where, yes, that was part of the art form, but not necessarily a very commonplace as far as the profiles again that you and I possessed, if you will. So, there's so many points of connection, and our relationship has evolved over the years. And we'll certainly touch on all of that. But more than us, this is about you. And I'm excited to learn probably many things as long as I've known you, as well as I've known you that I don't yet know. So let's jump in. Um, what I love to do, Farhana, because this is not just a quick conversation, not too soundbitey, if you will, I love to kind of start at the beginning. And that's really with asking my guests their origin story.
Mhm.
Really anything about your personal family history that you would like to share with our listeners. Eventually, we will get to the present.
Wow, an origin story. Well, I mean, I am the daughter of, like you said, Pakistani and Bangladeshi immigrants. My mother is from Pakistan. My dad is from Bangladesh. And so I guess that makes me first generation born in the US. And I grew up on the East Coast. And I don't know. I mean, that things from my childhood, like my parents were very curious people. So, um, they met in England, they fell in love. They didn't have an arranged marriage, which was a big deal at the time. And my dad was doing his residency in a hospital there. My mother was a health visitor, which is sort of like a nursing assistant. And they moved to the US. They moved to Newark, New Jersey, and that's where my
Mhm.
dad completed his residency and where I was born on the East Coast. But I mean, I guess it wasn't like a typical like pe how people would stereotype Muslim, American families, like very conservative and we like cover our head and,
Mm.
whatever stereotypes they have. We were very encouraged to obviously be good at our studies and typical South Asian values, but
Right,
um, my mom was always putting us in soccer or, try gymnastics. Or when I was 11, she put us in martial arts. And
right.
my
I
sister and
remember.
I ended up doing that really seriously and competitively from the time I was 11 to almost 18 or 19. That was really my life. And we we were encouraged to swim. My dad would take us fishing when I was little. Like my brother and I would pick worms up
Hmm.
from the lawn, and get those and put them on the fishing hooks and fish in ponds. Uh,
Yeah.
he had like a small boat. We used to go out and fish. He built us a tree house in the back. So a lot of the memories I have of origin are really around
Mm.
embodiment, like being in my body, doing sporty things. Yes, I did take some dance, like tap, jazz, and ballet. I never fully thought I fit in with that genre, but martial arts and soccer were really where it was at. And so my memories are really all about just movement and physicality
Yeah.
and being in nature, being outside. Um, and that's a lot of the values my parents gave to me. Like now, they complain, they're like, this girl, she goes all over the world with her surfboards. We don't even understand, why she has so many.
Yeah.
And my, aunt just like laughs and she's just like, yeah, she's exactly like you guys.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm hearing too. I mean, the first thing you said is they were curious people. And it's interesting because as you were talking, it's this very interesting acknowledgement of observing you over many years where you do get curious about something, and yet you that curiosity is not it's not whimsical. It's not like you just dabble. When you find something that really moves you and you connect with, you go deep. And
Yeah.
so you have that real dichotomy of curiosity coupled with a discipline and a desire to like that curiosity is steeped in like, I want to know more. And I'm sure there are things that, nope, that's not for me. So even just having that sense of response to something, you know when to move on.
Yeah, I think that's really sums up a lot of my path in this life.
Yeah.
It's really feeling the vibrations of things. And, I was also brought up with a lot of music and played
Yeah.
classical piano and different instruments. My brother played percussion. So there's always music, in the house.
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't necessarily encouraged for us professionally to pursue it, but we all
Yeah.
had. I almost think my brother could have been a professional musician,
Huh.
if he took that path.
Yeah.
Um, but there's something vibrationally about these things, like martial arts, like you're embodying such a lineage
Mm.
of movement that's coming down from, centuries of tradition and there's a discipline to it and it takes a lot of dedication and like kind of like your baton twirling, I'm sure you put
Yeah.
a lot of dedication and practice into that and that's kind of that was so fulfilling to me for some reason, like being in a basement every summer training for competitions like
Yeah.
on a, carpeted floor that would like tear up our knuckles when we would do push-ups and
Wow. Yeah.
just this real core act of repetition, disciplining oneself, and for some reason it just gives me incredible focus and just a lot of fulfillment. And I think when I stepped into dance class when I was in college,
Yeah.
I stepped into Gretchen G's class. Um, and I remember her playing pika, which is just the syllables on the tabla, right? And we were doing the consecration of the space, pranam, and just hearing that vibration and moving to it on my own, it was just like there was something that just clicked, and I was like, wow, this is so amazing. I have
Hmm.
to go and find out more, like what is the origin of this? Where does it come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really what took me to California. And then when I
I'm
was
going to hold you there. Let's take our first pause and then we're going to get deep into all of that.
okay.
Welcome back to Heartistry. This is Farah Yasmin Sheikh, and today we are speaking with Farhana Huq and hearing a lot about your childhood. Again, some I knew, some I did not. Some is opening my eyes to another side of Farhana, and some is actually just reinforcing so much of what I already felt and knew, or now realizing I knew. And so you mentioned, so you grew up on the East Coast. You did your undergraduate at Tufts, correct? And that's where you mentioned you stepped into your first Kathak class, which again is the art form that you and I both experientially, that's how we cross paths eventually on the West Coast. But just even talk about that. You mentioned you saw, so again, just to give some context. So you and I were both trained by Pandit Chitresh Das, and your first teacher, however, is Gretchen Hayden Ruckert, who longtime disciple of Guruji, Pandit Chitresh Das, and was also happened to be teaching on campus at Tufts University. So you endeavor into that class, you're drawn into the Teka, the movement. I'm always like curious, and I know you weren't the only one, but what was it that you were there, you were studying with her? What gave you sort of that motivation to say, I am going to pick up and move all the way to the West Coast, to the Bay Area? And a big part of that being to deepen your training and study with your teacher's teacher.
Yeah. It was again an energy and a vibration I think I was responding to, because classes were not at Tufts actually. They were
Okay.
taught at MIT first, and that's where she was
Right.
teaching. Her husband,
Okay.
George Ruckert, was a professor of ethnomusicology there. And so I loved it. I was like, this is so amazing. We have to get this on the Tufts campus. And so that's when,
That's right.
yeah, literally, talk about focus. I was like, we're getting this on campus. You know, Gretchen G came and sort of taught informally. And then there was this opportunity to start um, what they call experimental programs through the experimental college, and you can sort of
Amazing.
petition and submit like a proposal to have a new class. And so I remember I was like, we're going to submit something for Kathak, submit it to the experimental college. It was like denied. It was like, no, you can't, we don't want this, or, there's not enough interest. So I went and met with the dean of the college, and I was
Hmm.
like, we have to get this on campus. And she was like, well, if you can show demand, then come back to me. So I literally like wrote a petition. This is like obviously before email and social media,
Right, right.
like just walking around campus, and any South Asian person, I looked at any dancer. I was like, "Can you sign this petition so that we can have cut that here?" So got all these signatures, and then like went back to the dean, and I was like, "See here," and then that's how
Awesome.
the class got into the experimental college. So it was like then we had it on campus, and obviously over time it became an accredited university course, and now the second or third generation Shefali is teaching it there, which is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Built it after all those years. But I think one of the things when the dance was kind of being established sort of formally in the university system, um, she had already connections at MIT and she had brought that
Hmm.
over, Pandit Chitrash Das, who we studied with. And I saw him dance and I was like, oh my God, like, you know what it's like when you see
Yeah,
it's kind of inexplicable because you're just like, wow, that level of artistry, you're just kind of blown away. Like you know the basics and then you see it. You see this form in such a heightened
what it can become, how it can
uh,
evolve.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow. And I just
Mm.
kind of had this feeling. It's like I really want to go learn from this person. This
Yeah.
the origin of where our teachings come from, what I'm being taught. I really want to go learn. And I thought just a year, I'd go for a year.
As you sit in Oakland.
Yeah, 20 something years later. But that was really the impetus to come
Mm.
out because that's why I came to Northern California. It was because Dada lived here. And also I had started tabla at the time too. And
You started in Boston?
I started in Boston.
Okay.
And so um and I've done years of percussion, but Western.
Right.
So piano, and then I was like in percussion and band, and my brother played percussion. So it was always like this
Yeah.
interest of mine. And
Yeah.
the tabla was also such a, first of all, it was like incredibly difficult.
Oh my gosh.
Um, I know Dada's brother, Babwa, Riteshji, he always says he runs like Toronto Tabla Ensemble. And he always says, it takes like 5 years. Yeah, he either said like 5 or 7 years just to get like sound out of,
Yeah.
like proper sound, um,
Yeah.
and the rhythms. And so, yeah, that brought me out here and I enrolled myself at the Ali Akbar College of Music with Pandit Shwapan Chowdhury, who's a master artist. And then I was taking classes with you. I think you were still in
Was
San Francisco
I?
State or
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yes. And we
yeah,
took at the ashram right by Golden Gate Park. And
ashram. and
yeah.
and sooner or later I was dancing 4 days a week. And then I started teaching with,
Yeah.
with you,
Yeah.
you. And that's kind of how it goes. Like
Yeah.
it's when you're really it's a passion, it's a pull, it's
Yeah.
so many things. I wouldn't change that time in my life for anything.
Mm.
It was really just some moment in time we got a chance to tap into where there was
Yeah.
just an incredible energy and knowledge and
And access to that knowledge, I think,
yeah,
it's one thing to know something exists. It's another to actually be able to benefit from it, and we really did have that access.
we did. I mean, it was incredible the
Yeah.
caliber, but it wasn't even just about what were we getting from it.
Yeah.
It was a whole perspective on life.
Yeah.
And I think um it's kind of like, I mean, I always use the metaphor of like surfing and like kind of chasing
Mm.
waves, right?
Mm.
Like hardcore surfers, groms, like little kids that just want to surf all the time. It's like you kind of become part of this vibration and this
Yeah.
pulse, and you want to tap into that energy. And you skip school and you go, you go out for a surf, or
Right.
you watch the swell and you go. So I think in a lot of
Mm.
ways we kind of behave like surfers.
Mm.
That time we were all in our early 20s,
Yeah.
and we were really we just wanted to dance.
Yeah.
We wanted to be in the art. We wanted to be in that vibration. And the way we were trained, the I don't know neurologically what it did
Mm,
us, but the integration of, I would say, how we were embodying music and rhythms, but like having flow, having great, like there was so much integration in
yeah,
how we were trained as dancers that how can that not pass on to other aspects of our lives, like
totally.
how can we not get in front of an audience and be comfortable to speak? How can we not be a storyteller? I mean, that's what we were really doing at
Yeah,
the time. We were really learning how to be storytellers with our bodies and with our voice and with our energy um and we were being taught from such a ancient lineage of that. And so we were really, I mean, I think it was just a really amazing part of our journey.
yeah,
And I don't know. I mean, I just don't
yeah.
know, like in this day and age, obviously there's disciplines like athletes and people still train, in that hardcore way. But you're seeing I feel like you see less and less of it. It's more immediate gratification.
100%. And I think it's also, it's you become products of your environment, right? So Guruji was a product of the environment in which he had been nurtured and trained. And he passed that on to us, and we experience that. But then once it goes beyond sort of those of us, even Gretchen G or whomever that took it on, um, as it sort of as the separation from that source increases, there's the vibration also lessens,
Hmm.
right? And so we can do our best to embody it, but we received it. We didn't. He was so steeped in it in a way that we never would be. We were steeped in it in our environment, and
Yeah.
so then and again, yes, to your point too. Like it's life is very very different than it was in those days. Um, even a couple decades later.
Yeah, and I mean, that is the message we always got too. It's like evolve with the times.
Yeah,
How do you preserve the tradition? How do you bring the innovation
yeah,
in? And I think, there's always a source to everything, and that
yeah,
needs to be a lineage that needs to be honored and respected. Like when we put on a kunguru, we always
yeah,
remember, okay, where did this come from? What's the source
yeah.
of the teaching? And we are in a very different world, and we
Mm,
creators as well, and we go on to create our own art and to create our own expression, and
yeah,
it lives on, maybe not in the exact way, but
yeah,
like you're embodying right now, like it. I think that's been the beauty of the journey, is to
yeah,
see, to have been a part of that, tapped into it. And no, I didn't go on to be a dancer per se, like many of my peers, and you're all doing just an amazing job, like being professional artists, like out there in the world. But, you know, there's no way that training, like, there's no way I
yeah,
could do what I'm doing today without having had that kind of training, under my belt,
totally.
and the training of the martial arts before that, because
Yeah,
it really, any artist will know. It's like when you engage in the world in that way, in these disciplines, you look at the world very differently.
yeah,
And for me, there's a lot of polarization, a lot of binary thinking that
yeah.
happens. Um, that's one of the things that sort of shocked me when I came back. I spent a couple of years in
Right, right. Yeah.
Morocco and Europe. And when I came back, after just all the political
Mm,
stuff that had happened, I was like, oh my God, what happened? Like everything
yeah,
so split. And that that beauty of that space of in between, the real integration of things, I felt, still now it's so polarized and
mm,
so many things. And I think
mm,
what what art does, at least our art, the art I was trained in, you were trained
hmm,
in, um, it, you're constantly it's like Kathak yoga where you're doing multiple things all at the same
Yeah.
time. That's like real interesting integration, and
Yeah.
you're bringing so many different things together and kind of training your brain to take it all in, take in a lot of
Yeah.
perspectives, take in a lot of different ways to do things.
Let's
Um,
hold on that and we'll take another pause and come back in.
okay.
Welcome back to Heartistry. We are chatting today with Farhana Huq. And yes, the integration. I think, when I think about to your journey, Farhana, I think about, yes, you came to the West Coast with this intention of, I want to deepen my exposure, exploration, training to both the dance and music. And I mean, obviously, having I will use that word access again, having the access to Guruji, to Shrapanji, to the Kali, all of these things that could really do that. And simultaneously, you were also on sort of the start of your entrepreneurial journey, not even really knowing it at that time, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? And again, I'm going to encourage anybody listening to this conversation and certainly encourage you and I to, I think it's the totality of everything. And you said something a moment ago that you would not be even who you are doing what you do if it had not been for, all that we were talking about around the arts. Uh, and that has been with you. It's like we're always the totality of who we are. We might compartmentalize from time to time, sometimes consciously, sometimes not so much. But um, talk about that. I know you were doing a program with AmeriCorps
Yeah.
and and I just remember just being so deeply inspired, especially when things could have gone one direction and you really took it in another. And I would really love for you to talk about that first nonprofit that you started, but take us there.
Yeah. Well, that's also the other way I got out to the
There you go.
West
Yeah.
Coast was doing AmeriCorps
Yeah.
Vista, and I came out to help basically pilot a women's kind of like an accelerator for low-income women, and to
Yeah.
really amplify their strengths and their assets in the marketplace through entrepreneurship.
Is it still called like micro enterprise? Is that something that a terminology that's still used or?
It is still used, although I
Mhm.
think more now you'll hear entrepreneurship, I think is
Okay. Okay.
the
Yep.
catch-all
Got
phrase.
it.
Um, so yeah, it was a startup. There was a steering committee ahead of when I came out, and I was the first full-time staff.
Mm.
And I think it was like a $30,000 grant from Levi Strauss or some kind of seed grant.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly the amount, but I remember getting to the site, and it was like, okay, welcome, and okay, you got to find a desk, you got to find your office. You got to like, figure out your phone, and it was literally like startup. There wasn't
Mhm.
like stepping into an office space where there's a desk for me to work
Yeah.
from. So that
Right.
was my
Here's your stapler. Here are your pens.
This is like, where you can make tea in the morning and coffee machine, no.
Oh,
Um, so that was like my first venture. That was my first job. I was like, okay, welcome. Now get yourself the stuff you need to actually do the work. So it's
yeah.
very entrepreneurial, and it was so much fun. And we were training cohorts of women who wanted to be self-employed, who wanted to be entrepreneurs, and that
Mm.
had children, and that had other, they were trying to income patch. And a lot of them were artists or
Yeah.
had some sort of,
Artisans
yeah,
and yeah.
artisans, exactly,
Hmm.
crafters. Um, and I stayed for a year, then got hired on as a program manager. Then the program ran into a cash flow crunch. And the overall agency said, well, we can't run a program in a deficit. We have to close. And then that's when I was like, no, we can't close. I mean, I remember we had this amazing graduation,
Mm,
like the first time we were graduating our class, and we had these round tables in this hotel banquet hall, and at the center of the table were all of these displays of women's ideas and their businesses that they had worked on, and their families came, and children and spouses, and it was just,
yeah.
just like such a wonderful feeling. And I was like, we can't just let this go. We
Yeah.
have to, just for a cash flow crunch, let's like figure out how to keep it.
Right.
And that's basically what happened. So I started networking, and then um I met a philanthropist. She wasn't a philanthropist at the time, but she was in the valley, and she was like, have you thought about starting your own? And
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, not wholeheartedly, but I'm trying to
Yeah.
keep
God,
things
I
going.
forgot about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was like, well, maybe, you should, and I'll help you. And then that's kind of how creating economic opportunities for women was born. So that was the
Yo, women. That's
yeah,
right.
CEO
Yeah.
Women. That was a nonprofit that I started kind of inadvertently because
Yeah.
the AmeriCorps project had gone into a deficit. And that project was real, well, that organization was really focused on serving the refugee and immigrant women population in the
Amazing.
Bay Area. So it was a
Yeah.
lot about, the buzzwords we hear today, like equity and
Yeah.
diversity,
Yeah.
inclusion. It's like, okay, well, we were working on that long before it
Right.
were
Right.
buzzwords, right? But it was about like language access, how to create trainings that were
Yeah.
accessible to people whose language was not English, as a first learned language. And then it was about connection and
Mm.
building bridges within the community and building social connections, helping women get integrated and helping them use their natural talents and skills to build sustainable economic livelihoods for themselves and their families. And so that was really the heart of CEO Women. And it was
Yeah.
so much fun. It never felt like, obviously I was dancing and I was starting,
Yeah.
so it was a
Yeah.
very full plate,
Yeah.
but it was yeah, just a lot
All
of
very fulfilling.
very
Full but
fulfilled.
fulfilling.
Yes. It it just did not feel like work, and it felt very natural. Um, because obviously I come from a family of immigrants, and I
Yeah.
was very, very inspired by my
Yeah.
mother's side of the family, in particular my aunt, who had an arranged marriage when she was like 17, and then it didn't didn't last, and it left her as a single mom with three children to
Oh.
raise on, public benefits. So she turned to micro entrepreneurship. She started little cottage industry businesses. She
Mm.
built a little salon in the front room of her home. This is in England, in the outskirts of London. And so
Wow.
I already had this,
Yeah.
you know,
Firsthand observation
yeah,
experience. Yeah.
like how, particularly like women
Mm.
and in immigrant communities, like how they create their livelihoods. And
Yeah.
it's so much around um, entrepreneurship, being very
Yeah.
entrepreneurial, like family-owned businesses,
Yeah.
women-owned businesses. So that was a big motivation for me. And CEO Women, I ran it for 12 years. So it was a
Wow.
long, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm coming to California for a year
Yeah.
dance, right?
Well.
And to to spend time with Dada and go to
Hmm.
school, and then this sort of happened very organically, but it wouldn't have gone anywhere if it weren't authentic and real, and I didn't
Absolutely.
feel, deep connection to the work. So
Absolutely. Well,
yeah.
and when I know, when you had to essentially close that nonprofit, um, you were also simultaneously exploring surfing just as something, again, kind of tapping into that curiosity that tends to lead you into ex- deepening another aspect of exploration. Doesn't always mean you're leaving something behind.
Yeah, no,
It's
that's
often adding on.
it's so
But
true. It's so true.
yeah,
Like the curiosity with I remember, I mean, I was still dancing. I was getting very burnt out from the nonprofit. Like it was a lot
yeah,
and
yeah,
it is a lot of work. Back then we didn't have the frameworks we have
yeah,
now that I see Gen Z really falling into embracing and millennials like healthier boundaries,
yeah,
work-life balance. We certainly didn't have that in
100%.
art, the arts world we came from. It was
Yeah.
much like go kill yourself, be a
And in
martyr.
totally, and in some ways that honestly still exists. I think I'll say from my perspective, I can see the options, but the moment I sort of take that rest, then all of a sudden, if you're not hustling, you feel like you're going to lose your footing, you're going to lose your relevance.
Yeah.
So it's still, it may not be forced upon you in the same way, and you get to self-select, but it's still, the rat race is still very much a part of it.
Yeah.
Whether it's grants, whether it's performance opportunities, let alone just honing your own skills and craft. So, yeah,
Yeah, understandable. It's I think for me more of a choice now when I
yeah,
engage in work of like how I'm going to engage, like what
yeah.
boundaries. But back then it was like, no, we just say yes
That's
to
all
every,
we knew.
yeah,
Totally.
we just go. And
Yep.
to your point, we have to because we have to
Yeah.
keep the doors open and we have to
Yeah.
pay salaries and
Yep.
um but I was getting really burnt out. I mean, I just remember my body. It didn't feel like
Mm,
I, I was so athletic and
yeah.
dance and I was just sluggish and I felt heavy and I gained weight and just um probably just had a lot of cortisol and stress
Yeah.
in my body.
Sure.
And I, I was just very deeply curious too about other kinds of movement and I would go to the
Yeah.
ocean and I would feel just really relaxed. And of course, I was very curious about surfing. I'd always been since I was
Hmm.
because I grew up very close to the ocean. Um, and I remember, we would dance in the inner sunset. That's where we were at the ashram on Fulton
Yeah.
and Third,
Inner Richmond. Yeah.
near
Yeah.
Richmond. That's right.
Yeah.
And I would go out and I'd drive to the outer Richmond,
Uh,
the outer Sunset to Ocean Beach sometime.
uh,
And I would just like watch the surfers gear up in
hmm.
their wetsuits. And I didn't surf then. And I just remember being like, they're so cool, and they're going out into the ocean and they're walking on water and they're like flowing. I mean, to me, they were just the coolest thing.
Hmm.
And I never even thought of me being a surfer. I just was sort of like, oh my God, they're so cool, right? Can we go hang out where surfers hang out? And, and then on a whim, like I was in Hawaii, I took a trip with my parents and I was like, I want to take a surf lesson. And
Amazing.
I did. And we were in Maui and my dad took me in this 5 foot. He couldn't have been more like than 5'2". He was so just compact, this guy. And his name was Surf Dog.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he was like, you just do it like this. You gotta like paddle and you just pop up, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like 5'7" and I'm kind of tall and how do you just pop up? But he took me out and I mean it was hard, it was terrible, it was hard. And I was so bad and like the next day I couldn't walk. It was just like
Oh.
it's like the worst sport to learn, right? But but I don't know. There was just something
Yeah.
about it, like being on the water. And I tried sort of intermittently.
Yeah.
And then eventually I was like, I'm just gonna do this. And I saw this, obviously CEO Women was doing really, really well. And I told my board, I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm going for 3 weeks. I need a break
Yeah.
to to Costa Rica, and I'm going to learn
That's
to
right.
surf with this all women's group. And they were like, great, go, you know. And then I went, and that's where, and it was even harder.
Mm.
Oh my God, I'm so bad at this. Like terrible. Like I'm normally like a pretty good beginner, but I was just terrible at everything. And I mean, there's no good reason for me to continue aside from I just really loved it. Uh,
Yeah, that's a great
and then,
reason.
yeah, you're just kind of getting spun in the water. Like the board hit me on my head. I had this big bump on my head. Like it was just, I was kind of afraid, of the ocean. But I came back and I was like, I have to go. I have to go back.
Yeah.
And I got a wetsuit and I found a board and I just started going to the water. And I swore I would never go to Northern California waters. I was like, no,
Huh.
cold. Like, how could I ever go? But
Uh,
I got used to it. And that's kind of how the curiosity led me to
Yeah.
do that. It really was like kind of stalking surfers because
Yeah.
they're so cool, to realizing, no, like actually this is in me. Like there is a surfer in me
Yeah.
that's just wants to try it and do it.
Mm.
And but for me it was also something about not being on the land and
Mm.
being in nature and in a body of water. I remember I would drive to the ocean. Like I would go up north and I'd be in my car and there was just something about as soon as I would see the ocean,
Mm.
like my whole body would relax, like my gut would relax. I would just feel this calmness kind of
Mm.
come over me. And so it wasn't just for, the thrill of surfing. I feel like it was also helping
Yeah.
to regulate my nervous system, helping to bring a sense of like tranquility and calm. And
Mm.
it's like when have you been to the beach and you come back and you're like, oh, I'm so stressed, at the beach. Like,
My mom's like that actually. So, too much sand.
um,
But
yeah,
no, I hear you. I hear you.
yeah, it was just kind of
Yeah.
one of
It was
those.
calling you, and there was a real symbiotic sort of, relationship happening between you, this activity, the ocean. It was, there was very clearly something deeper than just saying, I'm going to go surf today.
Well, also, as I got deeper into it, coming from these traditions where
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure on you. I was a competitive martial artist as well, and
Yeah.
I didn't have as much pressure as I felt in the dance world, but um, you're you're receiving knowledge, you're
Mm.
to a hierarchy in some way.
Hmm.
Um, you are there is a centralized persona of knowledge and
Yeah.
kind of is concentrated in your teacher who's delivering the the knowledge, who's passing the knowledge to you.
Hmm.
Um, there's also this, like with the ocean, there's
Mm.
really no
Ego.
guru,
There's no,
like it's like the ocean is your teacher.
yeah.
So in that sense, it's
Mm.
very sort of liberating feeling. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like, wow, like I am my own teacher in a way, but actually the ocean is my teacher in
It's
this.
like the ocean almost becomes kind of a mirror to you trusting yourself and responding to it and yourself. Because again, what happens when we feel fear and anxiety?
Yeah.
We tense up, we tighten up. Generally, that's when, at least for me in a physical capacity, that's when I'll injure myself or, things like that. Um, so, yeah, I love that. Let's take one more break. Welcome back to Heartistry. This is Farah Yasmin Sheikh, and we are hearing about the many facets of Farhana Huq today. And undoubtedly, this episode is not going to be long enough to hear all the things or at least go as deep as I would love to, because I say that honestly with complete sincerity. I think, again, having known you not just for the quantity of time that I have, but really just observing, not because it's not about the quantity of what you've done, it's what you do. Again, you go deep, and that's what has always been such an inspiration to me. And here you are, you're getting very much more connected to this this relationship with the ocean, with you as a surfer, and you did some traveling, and that really sort of broadened your horizon around kind of surf culture on more of a global scale, and that from the perspective of both being a woman but also observing women, girls in other settings. Eventually, of course, we know what that led to, but please take us there.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this whole journey led up to um, my work in surf culture that culminated in something I created called Brown Girl Surf. And I started Brown Girl Surf in 2011, and the year prior to that, I was on sabbatical, 10 years running
Yeah,
the nonprofit.
yeah.
So I took my surfboard and traveled all around the South Pacific and Indonesia and just had these adventures. And the things I was encountering on those adventures were really kind of just working in the background of my mind and sort of I was making connections subconsciously, and that's, I think,
Mm,
really what helped form Brown Girl Surf. But some experiences I had in Indonesia, like surfing and finding myself surfing in plastics during the rainy
yeah,
season and just being like, what is it's just garbage. I'm surfing in garbage. And then my surf buddies having a lot of issues with how dark their skin was getting,
right.
my
Yeah.
Balinese friends. And when I asked, why aren't there girls surfing at the time? This was 2010. They're like, oh,
Mm,
because they get too dark. And then they can't find a boyfriend, or no one wants to marry
wow.
someone that dark. And obviously coming from the South Asian culture too, we see that colorism there, like,
Yeah.
oh, beta, don't sit in the sun. You're
Yeah,
too
yeah.
dark. So that was very, I guess it was really coming to the surface for me and
Mm,
seeing how homogenous these surf cultures were. And like Kuta, which is like one of the main cities in Bali, it was kind of like taken over by Australians. And
oh, interesting.
it's a lot of like colonialism and
Yeah.
these dynamics happening in surf culture. And then at one point, I was on one of the South Pacific islands called Rarotonga, and I met this fleet of Polynesian voyaging canoes. They happened to be voyaging through the islands, and
Yeah.
they were on these like handmade canoes that were handcrafted, and they were only powered by solar.
Mm,
They were doing this journey to raise awareness about climate change because
right.
obviously the islands and these spaces in the world that are surrounded by water are just so susceptible to climate impacts, and they contribute the least,
Mm,
to global warming. So that's where I went to a bar one night. Like I was just kind of on my own, poking around
yeah.
this island and hopping around. I went to this bar to see a dance performance because
Mm,
obviously I was taking Tahitian dance at that time, which is a
yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then I sat next to this woman and I said, okay, I'll sit next to her. She's there. So the dance performance ended and then like we turned to each other and I was like, hi, I'm Farhana. And she's like, hi, I'm Nofo. And I said, what do you do? She's like, I'm a sailor from Tonga. And I was like, wow. And and she's like, yeah, I'm sailing with my fleet and you should come
Wow.
on and sail canoes. And that's kind of how I met the Pacific Voyagers.
Yeah.
And and all of these experiences like influenced my own experience as a brown Muslim woman, surfing
Yeah.
and traveling. Like I didn't know anyone really that looked like me, that was like me. And then
Yeah.
um I heard through the grapevine that there were surfers that looked like
Uh, uh-huh.
in India and in Bangladesh at the time. Now there are in Pakistan too,
Yeah.
but at the time there weren't.
Mm.
So I was like, I really want to just go meet them and how cool. I'm thinking like camaraderie and peer and sh maybe similar to why you go to Pakistan, to dance.
Yeah.
And so I created this culture change platform and I named it Brown Girl Surf. And the first thing I was going to do was to go meet the first female surfers and surf communities of South Asia. And I was just going to go and travel and blog and write.
Yeah.
A friend
Yeah.
came, someone heard me speak and she's like, I want to come with you too. And she's a filmmaker. So here we were. Now we have a small little documentary we're doing. Um, and we released that documentary and a few years later went viral and then more people kind of Brown Girl Surf was just very interesting. It was just like putting out
Mm.
a a like a structure, a platform, like this is what I'm doing, and people were
Yeah.
just attracted to it. They just wanted to come, they wanted to latch onto it, they wanted to do things with it. They wanted to collaborate. So there was a lot of collaboration that came out of that, um, and it's still going. Um,
Yeah.
so since 2011, I mean, now I'm working on its next iteration, which is a surf-inspired skin and hair care beauty brand,
Yeah.
that brings livelihood and work back to women as I develop it. So that is the next calling. It's really about okay, like we've highlighted diverse women's story,
Mm.
we've helped collaborate to create surf programming,
Yeah.
and now we're into this next level of climate awareness and sustainable beauty and how do we change and shift culture through the actual products that we make and where they're sourced from, where they come from,
Yeah.
and how do we again bring that element of like self-care and beauty, not like in a conventional sense, but like what is beauty to you?
Yeah.
What is beauty to that person? And I think there's
Mm.
a lot of ritual in beauty as a value in many cultures. I think a lot about beauty as a value. If
Mm.
I was working a lot in service to equity
Yeah.
and justice and arts awareness and all these values, and then for some reason, beauty just kept rising for me. Like after
Mm.
going to climate school, doing my climate fellowship, it's like, well, why are we so, what are we trying to protect? Like, what are
Mm.
we trying to preserve? And
Mm.
I think natural spaces are beautiful for us. We're trying to preserve that value. And so, um, what are the actions and things I can do and create that are in service to that value, but that are also not just good for us, but
Yeah.
but on a more planetary level. And I feel like
Mm.
as a culture change sort of, I wouldn't say trendsetter, but definitely where Brown Girl Surf has taken a step, it's opened up and people follow or emulate or get inspired in some way. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, if we can show examples of planetary impact that benefits our body
Right.
as well, um,
Yes. I love that.
maybe other people will start to follow suit. Maybe the industry will start to follow suit as well.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of the theory, but I'm as an entrepreneur, a lot of this is instinctual. So
Yes,
I'm
yes.
kind of like, I see something there. Like, let me just move towards it and keep moving, and then the clarity will.
100%. And it's funny, right? When you said there's like that instinctual sense towards something, that instinct will also take you away from it when it's not serving the purpose. And or I do believe that part of that instinct is just also not being afraid to take that risk and knowing sort of what your threshold is around that risk, kind of at the tipping point, saying, okay, now I know it's not going to work, whatever it is, right? Versus, see, we wouldn't have known if we didn't push that little further,
Yeah.
you
And
on either side.
that's the thing about threshold. Like I really
Mm,
believe we all have varying threat. Like you would never see me with an ability or want or desire to serve like a 50-foot wave. But there are people that have that threshold and
yeah.
ability
Yep.
to go and push themselves and be behind, a wall
Right.
of water, and they're okay. Like maybe, they're not normal humans, but they'll be okay.
Their heart might be going crazy fast, but
Hey,
they overcome
wired,
whatever might be that obstacle.
they're
Yeah.
wired for that. And
Yeah.
I think same thing for us as creators and entrepreneurs in an artistic space, in embodied spaces of expression. Um, our economy doesn't support, it's not, I'm sure you're hustling all the time. And in my space as a startup entrepreneur too, and in this business, it's a hustle. But you have to be willing, like you have to be wired in some way to
Yeah.
withstand that kind of risk or threshold. And you have to, like, there's been years I've gone with no health insurance, and people are
Mm,
surprised. They're like, "You have no
hmm.
health." It's like, well, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, who's going to pay for my health insurance, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you just kind of, there's give
Yeah.
and take, it's like, well, you give up a little bit of that.
Risk reward, however
Yeah,
you
you give
want to.
up a lot
Yeah.
of that stability and a paycheck
Yeah.
and knowing what's going to come to be creative, be free, do what you want and create. And there is an absolute trade-off, but
Yeah.
the grass is always greener on the other side, right? People are like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're living your dream, like you're off into the world." It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but how many Excel spreadsheets do I have to keep my cash flow and finance it? How like do I
Yeah.
have health insurance? No, like I mean now I
Yeah.
do. There
Yeah.
were times when I didn't. So
Right.
I think yeah, the willingness to have a steep threshold to take
Yeah.
risks, and also the
Yeah.
curiosity to sort of move forward even
Right.
when you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the art of it. It's like
Totally.
figuring out, okay, well, what did we
Yeah.
get? Like, it's an experiment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I did not mean to thumbs
Oh,
down that.
I saw that
I don't
little.
know what that was about. Well, for Hannah, I mean, again, there is just so many more places we could go in traversing and exploring and discussing all that you have done, continue to do, and of course, the many, many things we are yet to see. But unfortunately, at this time, um, I do have to bring the conversation to a close. But again, I cannot say it enough. Like you continue to inspire me, and I know so many people, not just because of the what you're doing. I really believe with you, it is the what, but it's also the how and even the why, and whether that is somebody else's exact definition of their what, how, or why is not even the point. It's just having people like you to look towards to say, yeah, it's not always this very clearly laid out path, to say the least, right? And yet you really continue to, I'm going to use a phrase that will make sense to you, shine your brilliance. I remember those events as part of CEO Women, and you really do. You are Not just talking the talk, but you're walking the walk for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just such an honor to be able to be in this lifetime with you, to be able to observe it and be inspired by it ongoingly.
Likewise, likewise. I am in the company of greatness. Yeah,
It's Mutual Adoration
yeah,
Society.
Uh,
Well, Farhana, there are again so many more conversations you and I will continue to have, maybe back on the podcast when there's yet another chapter.
for
I'm sure there will be. But for today, I want to thank you for your time on Heartistry.
for having me. It was so fun to catch up with you.
Likewise.